Hey everyone, welcome to Tent Talk, the Farmers Market podcast. This podcast is all about farmers markets. Whether you're a farmers market manager or a small farmer, food maker, or artisan selling at farmers markets, you have found just the right podcast.
I'm Kat Fields-White.
And I'm Bridget Myers. We're longtime farmers market managers, educators, and consultants. Get ready to catch up on all things farmers market pros with us.
Today's episode of Tent Talk, the Farmers Market podcast, is supported by Project for Public Spaces. I'll be at their 12th annual International Public Market Conference next month to moderate a session on market management tools. Meet me there, June 12th to 14th in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Co-host Milwaukee Public Market has boosted community well-being and placemaking in the neighborhood since its inception in 2005. Project for Public Spaces offers education and support to public markets and placemakers worldwide. For more information and to register for this year's Public Market Conference, click their logo on the resource page at farmersmarketpros.com.
Continuing this month's series on how we define farmers markets, we're looking back to a 2021 conversation with Christine Farren, Executive Director of Foodwise, once Cuesa, in San Francisco. You'll hear our former co-host Justine Marzoni-Mead in this episode too. Back then, Cuesa was refining a peak COVID protocol system of curated boxes sold to shoppers who were hesitant to shop in person. We talk about how online ordering and home delivery fits into the definition of farmers markets as a place where farmers and eaters form relationships.
Well, welcome back to Tent Talk, everyone. Today we're speaking with Christine Farren, Executive Director of Cuesa, Center for Urban Education about Sustainable Agriculture, operators of the Ferry Plaza Farmers Market since 1999. We spoke with Christine way back in April 2020, which feels like a decade ago, as farmers markets around the country were scrambling to stay open under the threat of a public health emergency. Today, we are catching up on how Cuesa's programs are adapting to the newest version of the new normal, or whatever that is. Welcome, Christine.
Hi, friends. Thanks for having me on the show. You guys, you are friends. We're in this, right? We're together.
That's right. If we were friends before, but now we're trauma bonded.
Yes.
Friends for life.
For life.
We're blooded.
Yes. We're in a pod from afar.
That's right.
Well, thanks so much for joining us again, Christine.
When we decided to launch another option for people to buy directly from farms and kind of be this go-between, so it's the farmers market online concept, we decided to go ahead and curate the box ourselves, putting together what we felt would feed a family of 4 people more or less for a week. And then as the weeks went on, we also offered an alternative, half-size box. And we prioritized farms that we knew had lost restaurant sales or were really struggling. So in Cuesa acting as a curator, we were able to direct funds to particular farms, but we tried to open up to a lot of people, but also those farms had to be then ready for that. They had to be ready to, say what they had to sell and give us prices in advance. It was a lot of hand-holding. I mean, I think every farmers market operator who is listening to this podcast knows how much small-scale farmers have on their plate, how many different things they're trying to do, how hard it is to get their attention, to fill out this form, call you back. There was a lot of texting. It was one dedicated staff person's job in addition to a few other things. So my colleague Rebecca, used to do our events. She was in fundraising, and we would host 5 fundraising events a year. These gatherings of 500 plus people. Well, those weren't going to happen last year. So, and she was too valuable of an employee to lose. So she rewrote her job and, to meet this moment and also continue to help farmers. And we heard from our sellers, how appreciative they were. And we redirected about $180,000 to them in that 1 year alone, with 54 weeks of operating it and about 5,000 boxes being packed. And our volunteers helped us put it together. And it was a whole thing, right? It was a whole operation and worth it on a lot of ways, because it was also a way to demonstrate to our community that we were there for them. We have a lot of older shoppers who were very much not comfortable coming into the farmers market to shop in person, who absolutely wanted to drive up in their car with their mask on, pop open their trunk, have us put it in, show to us their paper printout through their window that was still rolled up. I think we all know people's response to the pandemic varied wildly, from the like, pandemic, what pandemic? Mask? I don't need a mask. All from that end of the spectrum, all the way to the like, I'm, truly trying to live in a bubble to protect myself. And so I'm not even going to roll down the window, and I'm still wearing a mask inside my car. And, I'm letting through hand signals, like who I am and how to pop open the trunk. And we were like, okay, we need to meet the needs of our constituents. So for a lot of reasons, the Cuesa box was great, because we were telling our customers, you can still vote with your values. You can still shop with your ethics. You can still support the farms that you love and are so connected to, and we're going to help make this possible. But, this is not our primary business. Our primary business is running farmers markets. And so, though we were really grateful to be able to do it, we decided ultimately to transition it to partner with another company who could help us run it, because sales were also diminishing. We were at a juncture where we either needed to invest a lot more money in advertising and promotion to grow the program, or we had an opportunity to partner with the fruit guys on this concept of having an online marketplace where we could rely on their expertise and promotion. And that's still a gamble. We're all putting our best foot forward on this, but we're still in the business of bringing people together at the farmers market to directly talk to the farmer. And that's what we do best. And so we're looking at some of these evolutions as a way to still meet the need of people being connected to who grows their food and knowing them, but also, once again, not making perfect the enemy of the good. So many people transitioned to shopping online in this pandemic, and we hope that many of them will be comfortable coming back to the farmers market. But if they're not going to be here on a particular weekend, but they can go ahead and place an order and have it delivered to their house, then okay, let's try that option. If it's still putting money in the pockets of farmers, and we're still forging that connection, and we're still able to offer a lot of the same education, so recipes and content about the farm and where the farmer is and how many years she's been farming and what her family heritage is and all the storytelling that we already love to do. If we can continue to do that through this online e-commerce way, then we're going to try it, and it's still an unknown.
So it's on did you see, as you saw more people have you seen a lot of more people coming back to the farmers markets live and in person?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. So as that opened up a little bit again and you saw more people coming back, did you see people ordering the box, but then also coming to the market and shopping? So
yes,
did they
absolutely.
use the box as kind of a baseline, and then they added on the goodies that they discovered when they came to pick up the box, that kind of thing?
Absolutely, Kat. Mm-hmm.
And then how are you financing the curated box? So was there a fee that the consumer paid? Was there a percentage charge to the farmer per sale?
Cuesa priced the boxes as a set price every week. And then we aimed to make about 15%. Like that was our cut of the cost of the box. And so the farmers set the prices. So some would sell only at their regular table price and not give us a discount. Others would give us a wholesale price. And so our profit margin would kind of fluctuate week to week depending on what was in the box. But it took that level of curation of us saying like, well, we'd love to add cherries. But so that was when we started like a fruit and nut box, just because fruit can be on the higher end price wise. And a lot of people wanted fruit. And so, there were lots of little adaptions and trials along the way to kind of figure it out. But more or less, the farmers set their prices and we paid those prices, but the box price was consistent throughout. So our Cuesa's margin would vary, but it ended up being around 15%.
So you were just evaluating kind of what the market would bear versus what you knew you had to pay the farmers and that kind of thing. I think it's brilliant that you used your event coordinator to switch on to that project, because that's a perfect translation since events weren't going on. So that makes sense. But on a long-term basis, that box at 15%, did that cover, we're using volunteers to pack it? Was there actual full labor costs to pack them?
Volunteers were used to pack it, but my colleague Rebecca, who was our events person, like that took up at least half of her job. And then even just processing the checks. I realize we're going into the weeds of details here, but literally just
market managers love that. Yeah. So how did that look?
Paying our, having our bookkeeper, since we've wound down the project just in the last few weeks, he spends an hour less here every week because he was coming in and he was processing checks for 25 different farms.
Right.
and putting them into QuickBooks. And so, and we were, hand delivering those checks back to the stand the following week. And Rebecca would be, texting and hounding a farmer to get paid. I mean, every market manager probably knows this. It's like, this is only in your best interest. We owe you money. Please send us an invoice. And still, you have to remind them 7 times. And then finally you get invoices for the last 7 months or whatever. So that happens. And it was all worth it, but the program needed to grow in order to be sustainable.
Sure. That's why it's so interesting to talk to you now, because I think a lot of people who would have never dreamed of operating an online system, everybody had to pivot into this with what was going on last year. But I think now they're starting to have to evaluate, okay, if we didn't get a grant to do this like some markets did, and if we weren't using this big volunteer force like some markets were, and if we weren't just burying staff time because we can't use them on events, for instance, but we still want to keep this person employed, if they need to go back to events, does it, is the actual cost of hiring a new staff person to do a curated box, that all makes sense in terms of a profit and loss statement kind of thing? And I think a lot of people are seeing that at the level they're doing it at a farmer's market, maybe it doesn't. And so they have to look at other things. So you guys are winding down the curated box and you're going to this new program where you're doing is it all home delivery, or is there an option on this new one to pick up at the market?
No, it's all home delivery.
All home delivery. So you're partnered with, sounds like a really high integrity partner. The fruit guys are local to San Francisco. They're family owned. They're B Corp. So it's not just turning it over to a produce distributor, which is good. How'd you go through the process of deciding who to partner with?
They actually approached us. So Chris Middlestadt, their CEO and founder, emailed us, and we'd had a lot of people reach out to us, but the integrity of their business, as well as how many farms in our market they had already worked with, and the fact that as a part of their business, they have a fund that they reinvest in on-farm innovation projects, or environmental projects. So, they have, as a part of their business model, being a B Corp, that a certain percentage of their profit gets put into a foundation that then gets redirected in funds to a farm for things like putting in hedgerows, for increasing pollinator habitat, like all of these things that are deeply important to us philosophically, but also the actual reality of the kind of support farms need to if a farmer needs a grant sometimes in order to buy the hedgerows, to plant them, to then, invest in their farm in this way. So there were lots of things that made us want to choose working with the fruit guys, but it's been a conversation that we've been having with them as we iterate this for a year. I think they approached us last summer and we said, let's start talking. How would this work? And then it was, a series of looking at the farmer agreements and knowing that Cuesa's role in this is to, I guess I'll back up and say, this is all still built on the scaffolding of the farmer's market. This is something that I think lots of people who aren't market managers don't realize, which is that the farmer's market not only is this ecosystem of relationships, but that it's a scaffolding that supports so many other functions. So right now in the program that we are starting with the fruit guys, the farms are still going to bring their product to the farmer's market, and the fruit guys is going to drive a truck up and pick it all up. So that kind of economics of everyone being already together in one place because of the market is part of what it's key. We're not asking the farm to make a separate trip into the city to drop off at the fruit guys produce terminal warehouse. So it's built on the scaffolding of the farmer's market, just like shoppers who use CalFresh or EBT or Market Match for their food assistance dollars, like they're coming to the farmers market to purchase that whole system of food assistance is built on all the farmers being there, and Cuesa having, being a part of the grant to get the funds to do that, to offer these systems. Like the farmers market is so not just a pop-up, right? We all know this. It's incredible, right? Infrastructure that and for chefs to come in and buy for their restaurants, and and even the artisan shops that are within a half mile of any farmers market benefit from the residual traffic. Like we all know the studies that talk about how much farmers markets keep money in the local economy, and that's just so true. So, but back to the box, Kat, I can see you have a question.
Well, it's just, so I know that this is a much more robust system, so the consumers can go on and they can design their own order. It's not a curated box. It's a fully functioning dazzling website where you order from. Is that something that you developed in-house, or what kind of, are you using a preset platform that you modified, or did you start from scratch and develop this shop?
It is Shopify.
It is Shopify, okay.
And it's being designed in partnership with the Fruit Guys. So we are taking photos at the farmers market of produce if we don't already have them. There's no stock photography out there, right? Like we all know our stuff is really special. It's bundled, it's vibrant. It looks like you're just not going to go online and get golden beets bunched with an organic white tag, like that people come to know of as like my farmers market golden beets were, because I'm eating the beet greens and I'm eating the beet. And so we have to do a lot of those things ourselves. And then also determining, what's sold by the bunch versus what's sold by the loose by the pound versus by the basket. And how do you adequately describe the items so that people, what they're seeing visually is also what they're reading, that they know that they're going to get. Because you don't want someone thinking they're buying a bunch of beets because they're going to cook with the beet greens, and then what they get is loose beets. Right. So it's all of those minutia of details that take a lot of time to set up the website. So that's what we've been working on in the last week. But yes, from the consumer end, from the consumer's perspective, okay, I can't come to the farmer's market on Saturday. I'm going to go onto the website, and I already know my favorite farmers, so I'm going to see what they have to sell. Or I kind of want to see who has this particular item, so I can search by a produce item. And then you're ordering however many you want of those things, and that gets aggregated. From the consumer side, the price is tallied, I put in my credit card information, then it gets delivered to my home. On the back end side, from the Fruit Guys, they're opening the website based on what farmer availability has been communicated to them. And they are closing the website 3 days later, ordering 3 days later, and then they're sending out to the farmers Friday morning. This is what's been ordered from your stand online. And so, 25 bunches of beets have been ordered. And then that farmer then is going to pack them and come to farmer's market with all their other stuff, and then cart over to the truck, or to Cuesa's kitchen, essentially, and which we're still kind of staging and figuring out where everything's going to actually physically take place. But that farmer will bring those pre-ordered beets and drop them off. And then the Fruit Guys will take everything back to their warehouse and sort it according to customer purchase order.
Yeah, I was wondering about that. How is that happening? I know there's a lot of room at Cuesa, but it's a busy market. So I was trying to imagine where you're going to do this sorting and packing and all that. So the Fruit Guys do that at their warehouse, and then they put it back on the truck in individual boxes, and they take it out to people. Right.
Yeah, and that has to be the case because there are all sorts of regulations when it comes to food safety and handling that they are more compliant for. I think a lot of farmers market operators have been kind of flying under the radar when it comes to some of the food safety stuff, which we all know that's the way it's been. But it's anytime you're involving a larger business like this, it's key for them to maintain that cold storage and that
Right. That whole chain of contact,
Yep, exactly. All the produce is off the floor, right? It's never touching. A crate is never on the floor. It's always on pallets. It's always elevated, all of those things.
And I think regulatory agencies across the country, I know that's been the case here, where our regulatory agencies are usually really proactive, but they've had so much other stuff going on. And I think, honestly, they've just given everybody a little grace they're not out there closing down little pop-ups in front of a flower store that's selling vegetables where normally that might not be legal to do because there's no food handling permit there. I think they're coming back to life. And so I think a lot of these sort of off the cuff, under the radar sort of operations are going to start getting hit by regulators. And so, it's good that people are thinking through where they go from here. So are the Fruit Guys then just cutting those checks to your farmers and you don't have to be involved in that anymore?
Correct. That's really key for us that we're acting as a curator and an introductor and a supporter, so we're there, helping to make sure all the forms have been filled out. And, hey, we know that you've got these varieties of cherries coming online soon. We have some pictures of them from last year. Like, let's get them up on the website, kind of really helping to help the seller to think through, like, we know this product is coming in a couple of weeks. Let's get everything set. So as soon as you actually have it to bring to the market, it's also available on the site. So we're that kind of advocate supporter role, but the farmers themselves have direct agreements with the Fruit Guys, and the checks are being cut from the Fruit Guys to the sellers. And then Cuesa's take is 4%. So it's not a lot that we're, to the point where I'm like, and we're doing this. Why? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I just wrote our fiscal budget for the year as an organization, and it's such an unknown that I put in like, maybe we'll get $10,000 this year from our 4%. And way more than $10,000 of Rebecca's time is going into this project. So for me, this is about experimenting. It's about wanting to meet the moment that we're in, where there's a whole group of shoppers who first need to experience something online before they are going to go in person.
So maybe get them hooked on the taste, even though they're getting it delivered to their house, and then them saying, "Oh, I've got to go to the farmer's market to get more
and then
of that."
They come down for a special event, or we put a flyer in their box that says like, we're having a goat festival again, and baby goats will be here, or we're doing it, which we've done for years, or some other way that we're trying to reach people to remind them to come down, because fundamentally, Cuesa believes in the power of community and connection, and you're not getting that when you're ordering online and it's getting delivered to your home. Like if you already have a relationship with a farmer, great, then you're kind of building on that pre-existing connection. If you don't know the farms, then you're really just going on the quality and the brand reputation of either Ferry Plaza Farmers Market or Cuesa. So we're looking at, okay, there's a whole group of people that maybe wants to be connected, wants to vote with their values and their ethics and their dollars in this way. And how do we meet them in the convenience and then encourage them to move into the in-person? Because we all know farmers markets aren't convenient, right? That's not what we have to offer. That's not our stock and trade. What we have to offer is community and vitality and
relationship with your producers. So yeah, of course, that's the part that's scary when you're doing this, is how do you maintain that relationship with producers? When you open your box and you see there's carrots in there, but there's 6 farmers selling carrots online, how do you still feel that connection with the individual farmer that grew that vegetable? Do you, at your regular farmer's market, do you charge a percentage of sales, or are you at a flat rate for the stall fee? Flat rate, which is typical for Northern California, I know. So the farmers, So you're still in this program, you're getting the percentage, but you're still getting a stall fee because everybody that's involved there still has a stall at the market. So that's okay. But I think you're right. The 4% against it sounds like you're investing a lot of staff time, which is great, because I think one of the obstacles for other online programs and even pickup boxes and things has been that the farmer doesn't take that great picture with the white twist tie on it. So it sounds like you guys are really kind of bolstering that and making sure that, the images are there and all that. I guess my question is, so you're typically, when somebody comes to the market to buy those carrots, they walk by the bread seller and the cheesemaker and the other impulse buys that might even not be on their list, or they're planning to get them at Trader Joe's. And so when somebody buys online and gets it delivered, of course, that's not triggering that spread of purchases to the vendors next to the farmer where you ordered your carrots. So what's your feeling on that? How'd you wrap your head around that?
There's a whole psychology and UI development about how to have the suggestible, it's the Amazon. If you like this, you might be interested in that, right? So there is a way to try to mimic some of that through an online shopping. I'm old school. I am not a millennial. I'm 47. Like, I am not the person who's convinced that online shopping is the best thing ever. So I feel like it's there for people when there's a need. Like there are times when I can't be at the Saturday market, but I would love to, so I'm usually asking my colleagues, like, will you pick up, these eggs from this person? Right. So what about if you're not me and you're able to lean on your colleagues to pick up stuff for you, then you have this option, and that's great. And then there's, like I said, there's a whole group of people for whom farmers market shopping is a little intimidating at first. And so experiencing it online is the right path for them. I just feel like farmers markets are so important to keep alive, and small scale growers who grow for direct marketing, who are growing for flavor, who have all these unique varieties, they need sales outlets. And restaurants are not going to come back in the Bay Area in the same force. They're going to come back slowly over time. Until conventions come back and until people are coming back to their offices more regularly, there will literally not be enough bodies in the city to support that. So I feel really strongly that we need to try. but I did have the intellectual or existential, like, is this undermining the very thing that I believe in, right? And that I have dedicated my life's work to, which is in-person, face-to-face exchanges and conversations.
Yeah, that's what the conflict's been, I think, for everybody that's done the kind of drive-by and pick up boxes and all those things. Are you including things on that website like farmer profiles and things so that there can still be, so it's not just ordering from Blue Apron or Postmates or whoever, whatever newfangled system those kids use to get food.
What do you use up to?
It's Good Eggs and Instacart in the Bay Area.
Yeah.
That are and they're doing the same thing, right? They have farmer profiles. They have, so I still feel like we are relying on continuing to invite people to the in-person experience when it's possible for them. But yes, there are farmer profiles, there are recipes, there are little fun facts about the farm or quotes from the farmer. All of that is a part of the plan for that.
That's great.
For the rollout of the website.
So there's a percentage that goes to Cuesa, and obviously there's got to be some percentage that goes to the fruit guys so that they can, they've got expenses, obviously, and they've got to make a living. I'm presuming they're in business to do that. Are you getting any feedback from your farmers on, the one thing about farmers markets is community, and then the other thing about farmers markets is letting farmers get that retail price of the product, the whole direct marketing thing. So they're essentially now selling wholesale to an extent. Are you getting any feedback from them on whether they're feeling like it makes sense to do that and still pay a stall fee to be at the market?
I think they're willing to go on this gamble and this trial with us. And so we're not asking them to, they still believe in the value of the stall fee for their in-market sales. And then it's like a restaurant, right? You might sell to a restaurant at wholesale. And so that chef comes by and picks up the 30 bunches. And then here's, instead of a restaurant, it's the fruit guys that comes and picks up that. So I guess the part, I wish I could remember the thought. You mentioned something earlier, Kat, just about, the psychological challenge.
Yeah, the overflow.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Just like, at what point are we undermining our own, efforts? I think it's incumbent upon farmers market operators to continue to make their markets more accessible, more inviting, more welcoming to all people. And that is how they will stay relevant. That is how they will feel, because what is it, that something like 4% of the population shops at farmers markets. So it's not it won't cannibalize sales if you continue to bring more people to your farmers markets.
Sure. Just expanding the market.
And I think about, I lived in San Francisco for a couple of years when I was in grad school, and I didn't have a car, and I would, just grocery shopping and then taking the bus is really hard. So I'm trying to put myself in that position. If I could easily get the farm box and then go on Saturday, buy a loaf of bread, get a cookie, get a coffee, say hi to people, and then know I don't have to lug this stuff back in my backpack on the bus because it's getting delivered to my house. So kind of going to the market, buying some stuff, and then also having some stuff delivered. I could easily see somebody taking advantage of both tracks.
Oh, so that's interesting.
Be an either or kind of thing.
Well, that's interesting to hear, because that's what I'm wondering is, are they going to sit at home and get it and then never go to the market? But you're saying you would get the box, you youngsters, and then you'd still go to the market and pick up the bread and the things that you...
Or if you live in a communal environment, which a lot of young people do, they have a bunch of roommates, if you're shopping together, everybody can kind of put their list online, and then, you could still go to the market, enjoy your Saturday, get lunch there, walk around, but then know that you don't have to commute home with all your veggies.
It's not really an either or thing. It's not I don't really think people who are getting delivery or who have signed up for boxes or things like that are just not going to have the farmers market experience. It's just convenience, that's what I get I get a box at the market when I'm working every week because it's I'm working, so it's hard for me to shop, but it's just, I used to shop before COVID times, but, it's just convenience. And it's I know I want good food. I want to support the farm. So I get that. So I get my box. So I have my produce, which is the anchor of my weekly meals for my family. But then I will walk around and get a coffee and get my scone and get my treats at the market and stuff like that. So I don't really think it's because I'm getting a box, I'm just not going to purchase anything else at the market. So even if it's a delivered box, just
That's encouraging for me to hear.
Yeah.
Because that's, of course, my big worry. And Christine, are you devoting, knowing that it's you guys, I'm suspecting that the answer is going to be yes. But so are you devoting a fair amount of resources to data gathering and trying to figure out, are these people getting deliveries, people that have shopped at the market? Are they new people? Are they doing one or the other? Are they doing both?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's yes, and probably not as much as we should, is the short answer. So like, yes, we have surveyed the folks who were buying the Cuesa box, and how many of them were Cuesa donors, how many of them were existing shoppers, how many of them were new that came to us. Not as many new people. So that was, and that's why we realized, like, okay, if we're going to grow this program, how do we reach people who've never, you have to buy ads, you have to play, so like it's a whole set of skills and expertise that we don't have. And that was part of the appeal of partnering with the Fruit Guys, is that they have a lot of that experience. And they also have their own database of folks, because they used to sell primarily to offices, right? And so now this is something that they can offer to their corporate partners. So instead of filling the office with fresh fruit, they can offer discounts to some of the businesses that they have worked with, who might want to then have food delivered to their employees' homes, or their employees might do that right instead. So, there's lots of different ways. I don't think I answered your question earlier, though, Kat, about pricing. And the farmers will set the price, and it will be, and then the Fruit Guys obviously has to have their markup, because they're paying for their labor and storage and delivery. And at the end of the day, if the farmer needs to make a certain cut, like if the basket of strawberries is the farmer is selling to the Fruit Guys is the same price at the table, and if it's $5 a basket, then the Fruit Guys is going to have to mark that up, and the end consumer will say, like, that's a little too much, or they'll either see that's too much, like, I don't want to pay $8.50 for a box of strawberries that's being delivered to my house, or they'll say, like, oh, it's worth it. And then the farmer will then have to decide, like, well, do I want to lower my prices and offer a wholesale? But it's that conversation that Cuesa wanted to stay out of. We wanted that to be between the farmer and the Fruit Guys, and because every business, as makes their decisions on a lot of different lines, values, economy of scale, whether they could sell it directly to the consumer, so they don't want to lose out on that $1 a basket. All of it's so nuanced for every grower.
Yeah.
So everybody's got. Do all your farmers and vendors have the opportunity to participate in the system, but they're not required to? Is that correct?
Absolutely. Yeah, no, there's no requirement. But what we're finding is that some of the farms that are well-resourced, that are like the farms that are the most business savvy, the most ready, are the ones that are the first to sign on, the ones that already have lots of chef accounts. And then we have a group of farmers who have still amazing product, but they are either not as established, or, and so the question for us has been, and especially along racial equity lines, right? So how do you support the farms that need a little extra help? We need to take the photos of their products. We need to help them, call them up and walk them through getting the load list together, send the text. We were just researching yesterday, like, how do we send automated text reminders to, like, it's Monday, time to send your load list into the Fruit Guys, right? Like, how do we offer these sort of support so that we can actually have a more diverse representation of farms in our market? Because it's no surprise that it's largely the white farmers who are the more financially successful farmers, who are not, who have been the first to sign up and are ready to go. And that is in opposite alignment with Cuesa's equity values, which is like, if somebody needs more help, then we need to come in and help them. Because let's just, I'll use a specific example. If you have a first generation farmer who's a farm owner, whose family grew up as farm workers, now this farmer has saved enough, scraped enough together to be the farm owner, but still farming for direct market production and small scale farming means this person is the bookkeeper, they're the accountant, they're the marketing person, they're the social media person, they're the sales guy the day of, like, they have every hat in the business. And so asking them to do one more thing sometimes means that they pass on an opportunity that could actually economically help them. So how does Cuesa come in and say, like, all right, we're going to hold your hand a little bit more through this, because you deserve this, because the system is stacked against you already, and that's not fair. How do we use our resources as an organization to support you and in accessing this new e-commerce channel? So that's a lot of what we're talking about right now, is how to dig in deeper to the farms who need that extra support and consider like, so does it make sense financially? Maybe, but is it fulfilling our equity values? Yes. And this is the world that we want to live in. This is the space that we want farmers markets to be radically inclusive, welcoming spaces, not spaces that only play bluegrass music, but spaces that play, like honestly, like how to keep farmers markets not just such a white space, right? That's a lot of what we've been talking about internally at Cuesa in this last year. Is not only evolving economically, but also intentionally creating, having our signage in more multiple languages, like, all the things that we can be doing, normalizing food assistance and CalFresh and Market Match, and making sure that at every stand, that this is possible for you to use those dollars, like all of that we're so keen, because farmers markets we have to become those places if we're going to fight the Amazon Instacarts of the world, right?
Yeah. Can people use their EBT and SNAP at with the Fruit Guys delivery?
Not yet. We are working to get approval for that.
Cool.
But yeah, that was a definite goal.
Yeah, I think you made a good point about trying to decide, okay, is this align with our philosophy, like sending people maybe not to the market, like keeping people home to order, but also thinking, if we don't offer these outlets to farmers that need it to make these extra sales to survive during these times, and just to survive in general, because small farmers are always having a hard time with that, then farmers markets are not going to exist anyway. So taking that long view, like supporting the farmers however you can, and then also doing your great job at your market. I mean, the Cuesa market, like the farmers market, nothing's happening to that. I mean, that is a good, strong market. Like farmers markets still hold just this huge value, the in-person, part that we do. But I think just supporting those farmers and getting, even if it's an online, direct delivery, so people aren't coming to the market for that, it just kind of making sure that these small farms can survive however they can. And if that means delivery, that means delivery. I think that's something that we kind of talked about as a market that didn't do an online or a box kind of system when COVID hit. That is something we talked about, like, okay, are these farms going to make it if we're saying you have to come on site in order to sell your goods? And fortunately, we didn't have any farms that ended up, shutting down. But, it was something that we discussed, like, that doesn't align with our original philosophy, because we're always saying, no, everyone has to come on site. That's what we're doing here. We're running an in-person event to buy direct from the farmers and to
have that relationship.
Yeah, curate the relationship. But since relationships kind of turned into this weird, like, you can't have a relationship right now. Like,
can't see me smile.
You can't see me. You got to shop and go. I think it's been really interesting and great to see how other market managers have kind of developed these, programs inside, kind of ways for farmers to survive no matter what. And that in the long term helps all farmers markets, because the root of what we need is for these small farms to continue farming, so.
And for people to feel that their markets are beloved. So even if they can't come every week, they stay, there's some tether, there's some connection there.
Yeah.
And you said, like, nothing's going to happen at farmers markets. And I'm like, well, actually.
I was just going to say, as soon as she said that, I thought, I wonder, should we get into this topic? So you have some issues with your site, right?
Well, we have a new landlord and they love us, but at the same time, they're looking to densify the retail places inside. And also, we have a kitchen that's out in front. It's valuable real estate. And they've shown us a couple drawings that show that space isn't all of ours anymore. And we have to share it with someone, or that, that they move the farmers market around. And, these were early drawings, early things that they showed us, but they showed us a picture that had the farmers like have two tents in the front on each side, and that we were all in the back. And I was like, well, that's the death of our farmers market. If you have like these two little islands, two little tents in the front, like that somehow cue that there's a farmers market there. Like density matters, and vitality matters. And so, we've since had lots of conversations, but I will just say that, like, yeah, we have a bike lane that our municipal transit authority is looking to change the loading in front of the ferry building and create a 2-directional bike lane that's protected, that's in front of the building. And so we're having lots of conversations with them about how to keep farmer load-in possible, even while making it more bike and pedestrian friendly. But how do you not kill one of the things that's really great about this space while also opening it up to other modes of transit? And so I'm of the opinion that if you don't fiercely defend what you have at all times and leverage all your connections and remind people that like, we're not a given. We're not a given unless you believe that we're a given and you show up for us and we show up for you. And that, like there are constant changes along here that have me just keenly aware how important it is to be transparent with our community and share with them. My mantra a couple months ago was careful growth. My mantra right now is be bold, be brave, because leadership and vision, people want us to really clarify for them why we're here. Like, what change in the world are we trying to make? Farming in California is such a challenging job. Small scale growers have pressures like none other, and they're critical. A resilient local food system is critical. We were able, like a lot of other farmers markets, to make quick changes because we're small, because we're nimble, because we care, and we're so committed to our communities. Like that's the picture we had in our mind. Who do we need to serve? And it was our farmers and our eaters. And so, like, at the end of the day, we were just going to try anything to meet those two constituencies. And so be bold and be brave to me is about knowing the support will come when we continue to deliver on what people want us to deliver on, which is education, inclusivity, and farmer support. And so as an organization, like strategic planning, we're definitely like our strategic plan, that thing needed to get dusted off, and not very much of it applies right now, honestly. So we're actually doing like a mini strategic plan this summer just to get clearer on some goals. We finished the 21-day racial equity habit building challenge that Food Solutions New England does every year. I highly recommend that to any organization that is working in food, because it specifically is food-based in the world of racial equity. There's a lot that we're working on. We're actually going to be changing our name next year. So you can invite us back for a conversation when we talk about what it means to go from a 21-syllable name to a 2-syllable name.
Wow. Very excited. Are you sharing? Are you sharing your new name? Are you
not yet?
Secret. Okay,
But
so
soon.
W back.
But yes, we will.
We'll stay on top of that scoop.
Yeah.
I know. Yeah, there's a lot, but I think that resilient, nimble food system that we all need, that saved us in this time and still provided all that connection. Like, I'm always going back to my values. They're my roots. They're my center and my guide. And then there's the cautious part of me that has to really take a step back and be like, be bold, be brave. It's your supporters will be there for you if you are doing the right thing.
Yeah. And not easy right now after all the trauma. Actually, I think so many of us are moving sort of cautiously and not moving ahead so boldly, just because we've been a little bit bruised. So I'm gonna write that down and put it on my bulletin board. Christine says, "Be bold, be brave," and we will plunge ahead.
Your supporters will be there.
That's right.
Yeah.
And I too cry a lot right now. So
Yeah.
So weird.
I'm with you. Yeah, it's a weird time. Thank you so much,
right,
Christine.
thank you,
It's always
guys.
wonderful
Thanks,
talking to
Christine.
you.
Likewise. All right, take care.
We'll talk soon. Okay.
Sounds good. Bye-bye.
Now, we know that the big name change was to Foodwise. And ultimately, a bit more than a year after this episode was recorded, the market organization discontinued their remote shopping system and delivery service. The message they shared then recognized that, quote, direct human connections are at the heart of Foodwise's mission to grow thriving communities, end quote, and that they would remain dedicated to supporting local farms and community food access in person through farmers markets and high-quality education programs.
Thanks for listening to Tent Talk today, and big thanks to the Project for Public Spaces for providing education and support to communities and markets worldwide, and for supporting Tent Talk, the Farmers Market podcast. It's not too late to register and join us at the International Public Market Conference, July 12th through 14th in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Just click the PPS logo on the resource page at farmersmarketpros.com.
Please leave us a review on your podcast app or wherever you listen to Tent Talk. Let us and others know how you're enjoying the podcast. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next episode of Tent Talk. Connect with fellow Farmers Market folks in our private Facebook group, the Farmers Market Pros Community, and follow us on Instagram at Farmers Market Pros. Find online education and other resources at farmersmarketpros.com. Tent Talk is brought to you by Farmers Market Pros, where passion meets profit. Tent Talk is hosted by Kat Fields White and Bridget Myers and produced by Leandra Hayes, with original music by David Mead. Tune in next week for another great episode.